Welcome to Data Science with Knowage and Python. So the first thing that we need to do is to learn how to install Knowage. So we will be using Docker containers. So let's go to hub.docker.com, and the first image that we need to pull is Knowage server Docker. Then depending on whether you need Python or you need R, you need to download whichever one you will be using. So if you are comfortable with the data science with R, go for R. Then apart from that, there is an optional container that we will be using, which is a GUI for Docker. So it's called afripaas, so you can download that, it's optional. So once you have those three containers, this is how you are going to set it up. So that is in the second step. So let's start with the afripaas. So I'll put these instructions below on the description. So once you have afripaas, then use this next command to run MariaDB. So remember, MariaDB is just like MySQL, and this is the location where we are going to be saving the data so that we persist it. Now I put mine in home developer knowage-mariadb, but you can put it anywhere you want. The database name will be called DB, but you can call it whatever you want. So once you have your MariaDB up and running, next you need to start the Knowage server Docker. I'm running mine in port 8002, but you can use whichever port you want. So that is my database password. So this database password, remember, we had set it up on the MariaDB. So you can see that MySQL database is called DB, and that's what we had set up on top there. So change this IP address to the IP address of your machine where you are running Docker. So once you have done that, depending on whether you are using Python or R, the next step is to run this container. So I'm going to persist my data sets in this location. So that's where I'm going to put the data sets that I'm going to be using for my data science. This key, we had set it up on top here for the Knowage server. So you can put whatever you want. So this is all that you need. And then of course, this is the IP address of the Knowage server, which you had already set up on your Knowage server. So that's it for the setup. It's quite simple, really. As I've said, I'll leave the instructions on the description. So let me just clear my screen and check that all the containers are running. So I'll just say docker ps. So I have my containers running. So I have the database and the rest. So I'm not going to be using the terminal to do the monitoring and the rest. I'm going to use afripaas because it's quite easy to use to manage my containers. Now I can see that Knowage server is up. I can see the percent memory is utilizing. I am seeing that Knowage Python is also up. The MariaDB is also up. So if I go to containers and running containers, and then on the Knowage server, I just want to check the logs of that Knowage server. So this is how you check the logs in afripaas. So just click on logs. The first thing that I want to check is if MySQL was connected. So MySQL is up, so it was able to connect to MySQL. And then let me see if the server is running. So it started correctly. Now, if you don't use afripaas, you can also use the docker logs command to check this. So just ensure that your Knowage server is running by running docker logs your container name if you're not interested in using afripaas. So again, I can inspect the container, the Knowage server container, just to check that the setups are okay. So again, you can do that from the command line. So now that that is working, let me set up Knowage. Remember, we were running it on port 8002. So log in as user BI admin. Password is BI admin. Now the first thing that we need to do, go to menu and then go to configuration management. So here, search for Python. So we are going to configure the virtual environment, so the backend URL and the front end URL. So this is the connection to your Python container. So remember, it was running on port 5000. So you just put the IP address of your host and then the port, which was 5000. Remember, that's what we had set up on the container. Then next, go to roles, and then under roles, go to admin, and then go to authorizations. This is quite important. If you don't do it, you will not have your on your widgets, you will not be able to have Python and R. So make sure that edit Python R scripts is enabled under widgets. And then next, go to business model and then select default model category. Otherwise, your datasets will not be able to work on the widget. Then go to dataset. Now let's create the dataset. So I'm going to create a dataset for sentiment analysis with Python and Knowage. So I'll just give it the name sentiment and everything sentiment. Scope is enterprise, and then the category is default dataset category. So this just is what we have just enabled right now. Then go to type. This is the most important part. The dataset type should be Python/R. Of course, Knowage supports all these datasets, but we are interested in Python/R. And then the environment is a backend URL. Remember, we've just enabled this. Let me just check the environment to be sure that I have all the libraries that I need for my data science work. Click on close. So the data frame variable, I'll just call it df. You can call it whatever you want. Then of course I'll import pandas because this is what we use for data science. And then my data set is delimited by this caret symbol, but if you have a CSV, you don't need to put that. So I'll just go and preview my data. So you can see that this is my preview of the data, and all of it is accessible. So these are the tweets that we are going to perform sentiment analysis on, and the data came as a file. Of course, you can go to Kaggle and download any dataset that you want to test your data science work. So save your dataset, and then now let's create the widget itself. So go to analysis, and then click on the plus sign to create your widget. But I've already created, so I'll just show you how it's created. So this is what we want to do. I'll just show you the code. So I'll just go to edit. Then on the Python widget configuration, when you go to dataset, select the dataset we just created, which is sentiment, and of course it will show you the columns. And then go to Python editor. Of course, if you're using R, you go to R editor. So this is the simple code. I just got this code from a Kaggle website. So the most important part there is df media. So it's sentiment, so it's equals to your dataset. The output file will be sentiment.png, and then you will plot it to sentiment.png. So go to environment, make sure you can see your libraries that you need for your data science. Then when you save, you get your word cloud. So this is a simple step-by-step configuration of how to use Knowage with either Python or R.